Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. Where should I put this? I don't think people are particularly interested in my poetry. But that said, for some reason, I do think people feel an interest in the process. You would think that they would go together, but so earlier today I posted a sort of query pertaining to all of these poems that I've been issuing for the last couple of months. Would there be any value to the resistance movement to have them out in book form? I don't know if that can be answered. Some of the poems get tremendous viewership. The ones that are posted as shorts, sometimes depending on the topic, depending on the vagaries of the algorithm, I guess, and then the longer ones definitely don't. It's generally about 10, maybe if I'm lucky, 10 views. And I said that regardless, if I do, I'm not going to become an online hawker of a book if I put them into a book. You know, where the presenter in question ends every video with, buy my book, buy my book. That's never been the way I've lived. And so I don't see any great press to change things. But I posed a couple of questions about whether it is something that there might be a value to. And I got several good answers. But I think even before the answers started to roll in, I had kind of made up my mind that just the way things go, to, at this point, compile the poems into a book would just be continuing to live in accordance with the way I have always done. So it's almost a no-brainer. Just for my own sake, there is value to it, putting everything into a finished form. When I began, I really got into this project kicking and screaming against it. I did not want to do this. One of my viewers is a booktuber herself, Julie at Julie Reads Her Bookshelf or something like that. And she said, oh, write more of these poems and put them into a book. I said, no, I don't want to do that. Maybe subconsciously that infected me with the bug. But I have been all along composing these poems. I knew I wanted to be prolific and get a lot of work out there. That's not an issue for me, but I decided to make it easier upon myself to just not bother typing out the poems. Over the years, I have a good number of books that I've written. I wonder if I have the page in here or not. I tried to put it in my books, yeah. So there's a list of titles. And because when I was young, I did an awful lot of work as a clerk, as one might say, as a clerical assistant of one sort or another, or most often as a data entry operator, they called it then. So I acquired or developed a good set of clerical skills, and I got to a point with my writing. Say I was writing a book of poems. When I wrote the poem or whatever, I would just immediately go type it out. And so it gave me a nice break from the writing. It gave me a nice break from the clerical aspect, because I really detest all of that aspect of it, having worked in the field so long. So it always was kind of like killing yourself a little bit to do that kind of work. But alternating that way, and of course, one must, or at least I must, have a typed copy in order to do further work with it if necessary. Not to mention the rigors of proofreading. So I developed a habit where I was able very smoothly to just knock things out. And it worked the same way pretty much with plays, which I wrote as well. This is just a little bit too hot, but it's approaching that sweet spot. But so for this project, once I decided to dive into it, I said, well, I'm a YouTuber now, and I will just read them as best as I can out from the notebooks, and I will skip that intermediate step of typing them all out. And it has worked fine until I reached this point where I decided, oh, maybe I should make a book. This was not in my mind at all. And had it been, I would have stuck to tradition and typed it out as I went along. And so now I find myself in a situation at this point, and I'm still writing, but I'm trying to slow down the writing quite a bit. I have two almost full notebooks, 70 sheets, 70 sheets. There's a few pages here yet, but and I missed one page in this one. And there's very little complete crossouts of stuff that was canceled. There's a page that was canceled. But I do have the habit, let me show you one of the more recent ones, because of just writing all over, so I've got stuff there, I've got stuff there, I've got, and so these are chock full. And I've started today with the typing process, finding it fairly tedious and also incredibly slow going. There was an advantage to typing as one went along. So, but I thought I would talk a little bit about the process, the decisions I've made, and how I hope to approach this. It will probably take me a long time to type everything out, because I can only put in small bursts of time, and when it just really overwhelms me, I just have to let it go. Now, when you're in the process of writing something and typing, it's actually a very different feeling, because the work is fresh. And so it's a good opportunity for you to really study it and make changes and review, that kind of thing. Now, I've been writing for a long time, so the need for making changes generally is only when there's some sort of egregious error. Unfortunately, I've only learned after many years, say when I'm writing something down, there are certain errors I habitually fall into, such as I will write the word, but I will forget to write the final S. And that can really throw me off. And so if I'm typing it out just say 10 minutes after I wrote it, I'm in a much better place to correct that. But there are a number of errors like that, which I wish I could go back to all of my old manuscripts with these eyes and try to correct the errors. Because sometimes it'll be the matter of you're thinking and you slip a word that's from the end of the sentence into the beginning of the sentence. It's just you're working real hard to get what the muse is handing to you down onto the paper, and errors happen. And at first, I never understood that. I mean, it took me a long time to figure this kind of stuff out. So I have not gotten very far. The book, I figure, will be patterned on my book, Small Poems, which is a collection of poems written under similar circumstances. How did I start? My political or civic-minded street creds date back further than most. As any who have read my Requiem or even earlier select poems that were later included in Embodiment and Release will recognize. In my time, there was no place for the publishing of politically oriented poetry, except here and there in journals of one slant or another which published doggerel meant to bolster causes espoused editorially. The nearest example to what I would have written would be the deadline poet offerings by Calvin Trillin, printed weekly in The Nation. But then again, the focal point of his poems always seemed to evade the tough issues at the crux of things. Punches were invariably pulled, or when they connected, had merely aimed at trivialities to begin with. Oddly enough, Calvin Trillin is still there, offering his weekly light verse relevant to the issues of the day. I say that I have a subscription to The Nation after many years away from it, and it surprised me that he was still there, but for some reason with The Nation, I seem to get one issue in the mail about every 6 weeks, so the others go missing. I believe they are published. And I really dread the book aspects of this. I will have to get Microsoft Word, and then I put these things out through Lulu.com, a self-pub house. And probably what I will do is just take this actual book as a template and just replace all of the text because it has the various sections. It has a title page, it has the table of contents, it has an introduction, and then it has the poems. And in my thinking, I was sort of half planning that I would like to divide the book into a couple of parts for each notebook, and I want to have a part that's sort of a prelude. But I'm not good with Microsoft Word, and it's been many years, and having to divide the document into different sections and then deal with possibly pagination or doing the page numbers manually. It's something that I really do not look forward to. So for right now, I'm just starting to do the titles on whatever the Mac version is. Pages, I think, is the program. So just getting a Pages document. It probably would be better to work on Microsoft Word from the get-go, but I don't have it, and I'm not going to get it until I am further along, because you do run into strange issues transferring text. I've always been pretty good about wanting to have table of contents in my books, and that's a whole thing of work that I think in my later books I just skipped. And in some cases, I think I even skipped the page numbers. Yeah, so like this book, I numbered the poems, and so I just skipped the page numbers because they were mostly single page poems. In spite of the skills I once had 30 years ago or 20 years ago, I have lost most of them. But so that is the plan for this. So what I have done today, in two separate occasions, I sat down. These poems exist in my notebooks all over the place. The first notebook is a lot messier because I had no intention in mind. And so they're all backwards, forwards, and I've tried to be a little bit more consistent in the second notebook. Oftentimes I just made up a title on the fly as I was getting ready to read it for YouTube, because all of these poems exist on YouTube. My ideal, well, minus one, I think. My ideal is to present the poems chronologically if I can. This book is roughly chronologically, but I split things so that, say, a real long poem would not have two different page breaks, and that, generally speaking, a large number of the poems would start at the top of a page if I could do that. And that is, I think, the kind of thing. So this is a typical sort of page. Titles that I would like to do with these, just to make it easier for reading. If you are a content creator, generally speaking, YouTube, in your YouTube studio, will separate your videos into a couple of streams, one being short videos, videos of a minute or two with using the phone held up this way, and the longer videos, which I've done in the landscape style, that way. They wind up separately on YouTube, but you can go to a different part and check your videos and see everything that you uploaded. So I have a pretty good chronology of all of the poems, and I would like to stick to that as much as I can. In this case, I may just let there be more overlap or bleed, whatever, with the pages, but I don't like, in poetry, you've got, say, a four-line stanza, and you don't want to split that up if you can avoid it. I mean, it's just an aesthetic thing. So you don't want to just copy and paste the text and leave it at that. So it will require more work than I care to do. It's the sort of thing that you wish you had hired hands at the publishing house, the big at Knopf, to do for you. But that said, I realize I have always felt a measure of obligation to the Muse to get this stuff out. And I don't know the use of these poems immediately. P. Krebs, a frequent commenter at my YouTube channel, said, well, it may be something to inspire some future writer 100 years in the future. And that's something I would not discount. When one writes poetry, one writes with possibly only one reader in mind. But I like to think more that they might be of use to a future historian. I don't particularly expect that humanity has a great future ahead of us. But if it does, and if there are future historians looking back, the kind of historian that I like is the historian who just pulls things from, has read a lot and pulls things from all over the place. So say he is writing about Darius, something like that, and he pulls a couple of lines from some Elizabethan poem by an obscure writer which talks about Darius. That's the kind of historian that I like to read, one who has seemingly read everything and can draw upon all these very disparate sources. And so it would be my deepest hope that in the future, something like this could be useful in that kind of situation to a historian. I did not fully appreciate when the Trump administration took the reins of power in Washington, just how fast they were going to explode things in every direction. But once I figured that out, I said, well, it's probably appropriate that I am the poet trying to deal with this, because I can go here, I can catch, like you think of a good ping pong player or whatever. I can go here and catch this ball, can go there, and I can catch them all within just constraints of time and constraints of how much I am able to absorb. And so just in the little bit, I've been typing out the titles and the date, because I would like to include the date in the book, but I may decide to get rid of that, because a date with every poem, if it's after the poem, it would add an extra line per poem, which in this type of book will make the book really balloon in size. I mean, this is pretty hefty, and I expect that this one that I'm working on will be hefty as well. And so I would, in that case, possibly just cancel it. But if I can figure out some kind of way to, say, do a tab right and put them, say, close to the margin at the last line, then I will consider doing something like that. But it may be beyond my abilities to do. As I say, just the whole thought of, I mean, pagination can get real funky. And in all of my books, I've managed to do okay, but the last couple, I just said, that's it. I'm not gonna bother with it. But I realize, just looking at the different titles, I haven't gone back to rewatch these videos. I have not gone back to reread these poems. And it is really impressing upon me just how much has transpired in the last couple of months or several months. I forget what it is, 3 months now. And that in itself may be useful to somebody in the future who's looking back, because there's no real good way for all of these disparate instances, events, transgressions to be put together. The administration had plans well thought through and then hit the ground running. So it's really, it's just a way to help me come to terms with the vastness of the changes going on. Now, I have in my poetry kept my focus to a few things, such as the illegal detentions without due process, spiriting people away to prison in El Salvador, those things, as opposed to all of the tariff shenanigans, that kind of thing. I think I've touched on stuff like that here and there. But even so, just the vastness of change has been stupendous. And so the hope is possibly as a book, it will give the reader something they can hold in their hand and use to just wrap their mind around the whole sweep of things. I mean, I don't know, these poems deal with the invasion and occupation of Iraq, which President George W. Bush undertook. And I'm sure a lot of this is absolute ephemera. There are poems about General David Petraeus, but it does call back forth some of the tenor of the times. So just say Petraeus's dinner habits, which were reported on, they receive a little bit of mention. And it's that kind of thing that one hopes a future historian might see fit to draw upon. So I'm writing out titles and dates, and I think I've covered 1 month, and I think I have really 2.5 months or something yet to do. Along with, of course, I will keep writing. That's my plan, at a more relaxed pace while I work on this project. But I don't see all of the typing getting done anytime soon. So after I get all of those titles and the dates typed out, then I will go back, I will open up the notebooks and try to find the correspondent poems and type the poems out. And that will be a little bit less uninteresting because it will be the first time I am revisiting these poems, and it will be an occasion for me to perhaps make corrections as I need. So it will have that slight touch of a creative aspect to it. And then once I get all of the poems typed out, then it will be the actual transporting it into the template, the lulu.com template. As I say, I figured to use this book, and then actually working on the finished copy itself, or I don't know how you say that, the print ready copy. And I just cannot judge what the time frame will be for all of this. It's excruciating, just the little bit that I've done. But as I was saying, I've lived my life in a certain way, and so one can't just all of a sudden change. And so it was a bad decision not to type these out immediately, but I will rectify that. I have a little bit more time at my disposal right now, particularly if I quit writing so many poems. My Francis Parkman will probably go on the wayside, but I hope to continue with my Chinese archaeological reading. This is what I would rather be doing, reading. But on the slight chance that putting this stuff into a book might be of value, that is what I'm going to do, but also just for the personal satisfaction, because I have lived my life in a certain way. And when I have finished a book of poems, I have gone through the process, gotten it ready. One always wishes, I brought this out, amplitude and dispersion. I forget which poem it was I had finished writing, if it was the Book of Sonnets or it was the one before that. Sheetrock Tabernacle. And I had the Microsoft Word, and so I thought, well, I had an old manuscript of like 300 or 400 poems, and I always wished, these are from some time ago, I had always wished I had an editor who would help me weed through the manuscript and make a workable book out of them. Well, after 30 years, I dug out the manuscript and took the project upon myself and came up with a small book and realized that I was the editor I was looking for all along. It's just, it required a very different set of eyes to the eyes that first looked on these poems. So there were, I went through and there were just, I mean, it was like 380 poems or something, and I wound up with 80 poems. And so I had to get rid of like 300. So for this current project, one might hope that a future editor would do a selected version. But for me, I will just put it all out there because I am too close. There's no way I could make decisions. So it will be a fat book. It would be my hope that something changes on the political scene sooner rather than later, which allows me to put an end to the book neatly. Otherwise, I intend to keep on writing and intend to keep on addressing this attempted fascist overthrow of our country. Even if the overthrow fails, the decimation has succeeded very largely. I don't want to have a phone book sized book. I mean, something like this is more than enough for a book of poetry. And I expect to use the same formatting all throughout, maybe even the same font. Or possibly go to a smaller size, I don't know. So that is where things stand with this project. I may have sat down with other thoughts that I wanted to communicate, but they have all left me. And so I will just leave it here. As I say, I don't get the sense that there's a great interest in my poetry itself, but I do know that there is an interest in the process. YouTube, of course, offers a different audience to what any of the books may find at a future time. I was going through my something or other. I was looking for something in my videos, and oh no, I think I discovered there was you could press a button and find out what your videos were in order of popularity. I had never seen that. So I clicked on it, and my most popular video was a video that I had made. I was sitting here one day and I looked over and I noticed that the pillow on the love seat had the appearance of a face looking out from the crumple. It was not a particular good example of that kind of thing. You've seen much better than mine, but I took a video of it, and that, I guess, remains the most viewed video at my channel. So the casual YouTube peruser, I guess, has his or her own set of priorities. I just thought I would try to clear some of this out for myself and just let you know. I actually was appreciative of those of you who commented and kind of encouraged me. As it turned out, I didn't need that encouragement. I really would like for this to be the end of the writing business. I thought for sure that my book of sonnets was going to be it. And I did not particularly want to be writing another one of this sort of thing, just really explicitly dealing with the political circumstances of the day. I have, however, written a fair number of books against holy war that do touch upon topical events. Against Holy War was a response to the felling of the World Trade Center towers, a very short book. And so once again, though that was not overtly political in the sense that these poems are, it still is in accord with that practice. I've been, that's what, 2001, so that's almost 25 years. As I say, my life has been lived in a certain way. My whole artistic career has been pursued in a certain way, and there is no reason to change that now. I would like to get back to the reading. I did a little reading of Francis Parkman, and I did some of the archaeology. What I read, I'm reading about the Zhao dynasty, and so learning about the Zhao people before the fall of the Shang dynasty. And so then we will, the next chapter will be about the conquest, and then we will move forward from there. And I do hope I can keep this up. I certainly will not be jumping up at every chance I get to go to the typewriter and type this stuff out. Whereas when the poetic inspiration comes upon me, I do leave go of everything else. I'll report back if there's anything more, but thank you who gave me your input to that slight post this morning, and wish me the fortitude to get through this. Thanks for stopping by my channel.